So hello, Prologis. My name is Chris Cortopassi. I run a business called Short Steps, Problem Solving for Men, and I work fully in the mental health space. So I'm here today to help Prologis out, give you some hints and tips on how to sort of recognise and how to respond to some of the most common mental health issues that you'll see on a day-to-day basis that we all experience. And at the end, just sort of give you a little bit of a hint as to what you might want to do next to look after your own health, your own mental well-being, and that of your colleagues and friends. Let's start with what the sort of basic sort of mental health conditions are that you'll tend to find. And again, let's break down the stigma here. You've got a physical health, you've got a mental health. So what are the more common physical health issues you see in your industry? Is it bad backs? Is it shoulder pain? Is it something to do with posture if you work at the desk all the time? Mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, stress are as common and as prevalent, if not far more so, than those physical ailments. So they're not something to be afraid of. So what we want you to do is think about your mental well-being and the mental well-being of your friends and colleagues in the same way as you do physical well-being. Let's start. What does it look like when someone's depressed? Well, low mood, withdrawal, they might be a bit nervous or irritable. You'll notice a big change in them to how they were before. Anxiety is such a common thing. It's basically just nervousness, isn't it? It's butterflies in the stomach, and so people that are struggling from anxiety, there's a lot going on which is causing them to not be able to make decisions, which is making them anxious. So they'll have difficulty concentrating and making decisions. They'll probably be quite irritable because things are taking longer to process, and if they're being pushed for something, then they'll feel stressed and anxious. They'll try to avoid certain situations, social situations in particular, or anything that puts them under that sort of magnifying glass, because again, they're struggling to kind of make quick decisions due to all the sort of anxiety that's going on upstairs. And they'll be quite easily startled by things. So if you find someone, sometimes people carry a lot of nervous energy with them and they're quite jumpy, those people are quite often suffering from kind of a constant anxiety. And then finally, stress. I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't know what stress looks like. And actually, stress is a really positive thing, when it's leveraged in the right sort of way. We wouldn't make progress if we didn't have a reasonable element of stress. But people that are really struggling with stress, really impatient. They'll lose their temper really quickly. They'll probably lose their appetite, be very irritable and very reactive in a lot of ways. And so you'll really see that shift in behaviour start to come out. Now, the tough thing with all these things, depression, anxiety, stress, is that we all experience them and we know how uncomfortable they can be. So when we see them in other people, we react to that, and it makes us nervous and it makes us afraid because it's quite scary. If somebody's sick and they're off from work, you'll phone them up and say, "Oh, how's that stomach bug? How's your gastroenteritis or your heartburn or whatever it was you were struggling with? How's your bad back?" But the fear around mental health does hold us back from doing those kind of things, which is why it's so important for us to start to break down the stigma, start looking at it the same way as you do our physical health, your mental health, so that we can be less afraid and comfort and support each other better. So what do you do if you're worried about somebody and you think they're struggling? Well, look, keep it really simple and don't be afraid. It's a simple question. Ask it in your own language, authentically, and in your own time. You don't have to take them away for a special chat. You don't have to take them for a coffee or anything like that. Just, "Oh, Jim, you've been pretty quiet the last couple of weeks. What's going on?" "Oh, I'm fine, Chris." "Okay. Seriously though, mate. What's the story?" Keep it on the level. People that are in those places and they're struggling in that way will react strongly to changes in other people's behaviour. They'll see it, and they'll see it as a consequence of them being a burden, of them being pathetic, of them being awkward and difficult. The last thing you want to do is make them feel that. So just be yourself and just ask them the question, but ask it twice. It's easy to avoid it the first time. Second time around, you might get lucky and just crowbar them into a bit of opening up in action. Beyond that, if they still say no, that's okay. Revisit it another day. If somebody's in a really bad space, if you think this guy's not making critical decisions for himself, he's not looking after himself, he can't really focus, take him by the hand and take him to a GP, however that has to be achieved. Just like the person who's lying at the side of the road in a car accident, we can't take ourselves to the help that we need to, so do it for them. As for yourself, in terms of day-to-day, you already know the answers to this stuff. What we get taught these days in terms of how to look after our mental health is what we've always really been taught about how to manage our physical health. But some of the stuff that you do, that you can do on a day-to-day basis, the Prologis are really focused on and do their best to provide for their clients. Simple stuff, good nutrition, outdoor spaces, fresh air, sleep is really important, obviously. All those things serve to, raise the endorphins and kind of keep us on a bright level during the day. And in terms of preventing mental illness in future, get to know yourself more, learn more about your personality, your inherent leading preferences, what's good for you and what's not. The more you know about yourself, the better you can regulate and change your own life to avoid mental health becoming an issue for you in future. So there's some good information there for you in terms of what those day-to-day mental health symptoms look like, how you could spot them, and then just a simple piece of advice on how to approach someone to hopefully nudge them in the direction of starting to sort of take it seriously.